Okay, hello. This is my 28th lesson on a series of lectures of how the USA is starting a new Cold War with Russia. And today we're going to focus on the notion of a major Russian attack to expand its empire is comical, ridiculous, crackpot. Because what would they take? All right. So we're going to see how obvious and undeniable this is. All right. Now I know this is being attacked already with a big stupid wave, which is probably just a joke, using the old method of aggressive humor. Same method used thousands and thousands of times, but it works every time. Based on nothing. But it's going to work because no one knows anything. All they know is a joke. No real facts, no intelligence. They know the joke. That's it. And it dominates their brains. That's all they know. So, going back to the main idea, we've been talking about Russia's incapacity for offensive military adventurism. Right? We're going to talk about the last element today. But to review, we'll go through all the other ones. First is Russia's perfect record of military failure. Every damn war they fought, they failed. Except one time they fought well. Right? The latter part of World War II when they faced Nazi genocide. All right. Then another supporting fact is Russia's pathetic performance in its last three wars. Its last three wars were all crap. Two Chechen wars. Russia lost the first against Chechnya. I mean, come on. A tiny province inside Russia, 1/1000 the size of Russia. Russia loses to them. Then they perform crap in Georgia. Not even all of Georgia, only a tiny portion of Georgia. Abkhazia and South Ossetia, two tiny regions in Georgia. They perform like crap. Another is Russia's poor material capability, starting with their weak GDP, a tiny weak GDP. And then they have backwards technology, way behind the West. Then they have small numbers of equipment. Then they have equipment that's not maintained. It's breaking down. Then their equipment is inferior to the Western equipment. All right. The long history of rampant military corruption in the Russian military, right? Affects the material readiness, affects morale. And then they're manifold. They have many military personnel problems, right? Long history of it, including historic high rates of deferment, conscription evasion, which is draft dodging, and desertions. Every damn war they have high rates of desertions. Except Afghanistan, because where are they going to desert to? But every other war, they're deserting like crazy. Russia's problem with internal instability, all right? Rand Corporation's 2019 report said the greatest threat is internal stability, a threat from within. And historically, many bad wars by Russia causes revolution and overthrow of the government and breakdown of the Soviet Union. All right, they face this problem. They'll face it again. And then they have the threat of Caucasus Emirates. This is where they're vulnerable, and this is a very vital region. All right, 15 times Chechens try to break away from Russia, constantly. Now today we're going to talk about the whole idea that Russia's going to rebuild its empire is a joke. The real joke is not my stuff. You're the joke. I mean, just look at what's there to take. Nothing worth taking all around them. Anything worth taking, they cannot take. They'll get a severe beatdown. Only 3 countries worth taking. Everything else is crap. And we'll go through this. I'll show you when we get to it. Now, For Russia to conduct an offensive military adventure to rebuild its empire, it's safe to assume they're going to have to attack a nation on its border, right next to it. They're not going to go, over to Bolivia or, Ecuador or something like that and try to take that. They're not going to go try to take Madagascar, right? Or Liberia, whatever. They're going to take something right next to them to expand his empire. Now, what is right next to Russia? That's the next question. Well, you got Japan, North Korea, South Korea, China here, Mongolia touches them, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. That's it. They ring Russia right there. So Russia's going to expand. It's going to take one of those. If it's going to expand further, it's got to go through those and take them to begin with. All right. So I say right off the bat here, the chances of Russia attacking some of these countries are so obviously low and far-fetched that it's comical. All right? It's a joke. They're making a joke about me. This is a joke. You can only laugh if you know or understand anything. If all you know is a joke that's being passed, well, then you can laugh. Right? The only way you can do that is if you know nothing. Which is what 99.99999% of the masses know. Nothing. All right. So we're going to first look at Japan. Right? We're going to start on the east. We'll end up in the west. The west is where there's a higher chance of Russia taking something. But why would they take it? Were they going to take Estonia? For what? What are they going to get? It's whacked by NATO. All right, so Russia taking Japan is crazy, stupid comedy joke. All right, first, USA has 17 military bases in Japan. What does that mean? You attack Japan, you're going to attack America. You're going to war with the USA. Right? And then I say this. Plus, USA has all sorts of satellite intel. There's no way you can have a buildup for an amphibious invasion. It's a massive buildup. You can't hide that, right? You're gonna know it's coming for many months. It's gonna take at least 6 months to a year to build up that forces, right? And you're just waiting to whack it, and you're taking action in the meantime. You're hitting them with sanctions, right? Before they even launch it. There's no element of surprise. All right. Attacking Japan would require an amphibious assault. To get large amounts of ground forces over there, it's got to be by sea. Air is limited. All right? You're going to take one tank at a time with an aircraft. All right. So, that amphibious assault is going to be extremely large and a complex operation requiring overwhelming superiority in the air, on the surface of the ocean, and underwater. For example, the U.S. invasion of Okinawa in World War II required a force of 1,321 ships. You think Russia's got that many ships? Hell no! That force included 39 aircraft carriers, 18 battleships, 177 destroyers, 84 amphibious ships, 139 logistical ships, and countless other support ships to get 1,321 ships. Right? Now, even bigger than that was the planned invasion of Japan. So to invade Japan, they said, we got to even go bigger. 42 aircraft carriers. How many does Russia have? One crappy, broken down carrier. 24 battleships. How many battleships does Russia have? 0. It's got 2 battle cruisers. Old Russian boats. Kirov class. 400 destroyers. Right? Russia has only one crappy carrier, right, with a jump jet, limiting payload for this aircraft. Only 20 aircraft on it they can take, right? It's nothing, and it breaks down. You know what? Honestly, this boat is stationed out west. All right, probably in the North Sea. I'm guessing, right? The Northern Fleet, and to get to Vladivostok here, it's got to go through all this territory. It's got to go through Mediterranean, Suez Canal, Indian Ocean. All right, all the way up through the Straits of Malacca, right, and then up to Vladivostok, right. I'm willing to bet it's not going to make it there without breaking down. Whenever it goes out, it's got to carry it's got to take along a tugboat. And Russia's got 4 old Soviet-era amphibious ships. That's it. Not 84, right? 4 in the Pacific. And each of these are tiny. They're puny. Only 4,000-ton displacement. Compare that with American-class amphib. 45,000 tons. Over 11 times bigger. 11 times bigger each ship. USS Wasp class. 40,000 tons. Each ship 10,000 tons. They got 4. I mean, give me a break. Hello, McFly. It's like I gotta punch you in the head and scream, "Hello, McFly, wake up!" Furthermore, such an amphibious assault requires overwhelming dominance in the air, surface, and underwater, or all Russian ships will be sunk with all the Russian soldiers drowned. Russia does not have that naval and air force superiority to protect such an operation. Right? Russia's got 1 broken down carrier. They got 2 battle cruisers, 3 cruisers. That's their best ships right there. 6. That's it. That's a joke. And they're all old Soviet era things, which means what? Chances are they're broken down. Now compare that with the D-Day landings. All right? D-Day landings going from England to Normandy. That's it. From here to there. That's all they're going. Right? And look at what the U.S. had to do. Look at what the Allies had to do. All right? So the D-Day landings, right? Allies had total superiority. Right? Air, surface, underwater. Virtually no German Air Force, Navy, or subthreat. Virtually none. None. Russia's not going to get anywhere. Russia's going to be dominated. Are you kidding me? Now, how did they get this? You think it was easy? All right, let me tell you. You ever heard of U.S. strategic bombing in Europe? Began in April of 1942. D-Day was June 6th of 1944. Over 2 years of strategic bombing. You know what the target was? The whole purpose of U.S. strategic bombing was preparation for D-Day. Right? It started off with attacking German air power. Right? That was the main focus. No air power over the beaches on D-Day. To do that, they went after German aircraft factories. All right? And then they shifted to Berlin. And you know why they shifted to Berlin? All right? To bomb German targets? No! They knew that if they bombed Berlin, the Germans would send up their fighters. And then they would knock down all their fighters. So the purpose of bombing Berlin was less to destroy targets on the ground and more to decimate the German air power. And then lastly, in the last month or 2 before the invasion, they shifted focus onto lines of communication. They started taking out the roads. They started taking out the railroads. But then they discovered that Germans were able to rebuild these overnight. So then they took out the bridges. All right? And the whole purpose is to prevent resupply, reinforcements, movement of forces and supplies. It was all in preparation. All this in preparation for D-Day. And it'll still touch and go. All right? 2 years of preparation. You think Russia's going to get that in Japan? You don't understand what's going on here. What's required. All you got is a joke. Me no funny joke. That's reality. 2 years of bombing in preparation of amphibious. This is massive. You know how big these raids were? 1,000 plane raids. 1,000 planes at a time. 1,000 of these bombers. Supported by aircraft. Fighters. 1,000 B-17s or B-24s at a time. Massive raids. 2 years of them. In preparation of the invasion. You have no understanding of what's required in amphibious invasion. You think it's easy. And then after the initial beach assault, offensive operations must spread through Japan. So here's Vladivostok. You know they're going to launch from here. Right? With 4 amphibs? You nuts? Wherever they land, they got to spread through the whole country. And let me give you this. Let me give you this example. So, 1,321 ships were required to invade Okinawa. This is Okinawa on the same scale. This is Japan. This is Okinawa. This is Japan. This is Okinawa. All right? You needed this massive force. Russia can never attain this force. That's required to invade Okinawa. How much more massive is going to be required to invade Japan? Thank goodness we dropped the bomb. All right. Okay. We're talking wacko reality here. You cannot understand this? Shut up, because you just don't know or understand anything. All you have is a joke. Big social reality wave joke. Simple, stupid, baseless. Alright, so after initial assault, you got to spread out. This requires an immense and continuous stream of logistical support. It's a massive continuous train every damn day flowing in from Russia across the Sea of Japan to Japan. Right? You got to protect that. Fuel, ammunition, food, weapons, reinforcements. They all got to cross the Sea of Japan daily. All easily sunk without total air superiority on the surface, air, and underwater. Furthermore, Russia's logistical lines of communication would stretch all the way across Russia, making them easy to sever anywhere along the way. Okay, Russia's concentration of military assets are in the west, facing the west here. To attack Japan, it's going to have a massive airlift, which is not going to be sufficient. You got to go by ship through the Mediterranean, right? Through the Suez Canal, or you got to go around the Horn of Africa, right? All the way through the Indian Ocean, past India, past Indonesia, then up there. Come on, massive. Historically, that killed Russia. Russo-Japanese War. Now, I'm not going to explain that war. If you know nothing about it, I can't explain it to you. Any decent military historian knows that Russia's long lines of communications were a fundamental weakness in the Russo-Japanese War. And there are many other countless examples how battles were lost due to failed logistics. This is a fundamental strategy. Right? If you don't know this, I can't help you. All you'll have is a simple, stupid joke in social reality. Japan by itself has sufficient military assets to cut Russia's lines of communications with anti-ship missiles, with surface-to-air missiles. It's got the aircraft. It's got the surface ships. It's got the submarines all by itself. It doesn't need anyone's help to destroy Russia's efforts to get across. And it's going to get U.S. help. You know U.S. is going to get involved in this. It's just crazy to think this could happen. Japan. Here's an example. Japan has 23 super quiet diesel electric submarines. High tech. Super silent. That's the stealth for submarines. Noise. Right? They alone can cut Russia's sea line's communication. You pack 23s in there, 23 of these Japanese subs in there, nothing's getting through. Then on top of that, just another isolated example. Japan has 4 aircraft carriers to Russia's crappy 1, which may not even make it out there without a tugboat. And Japan's carriers can launch F-35 stealth fighters. Right? And look at Japan's Air Force. Its Air Force consists of F-15s, F-35s, and F-2 Japanese fighters, which are a Japanese modified version of the American F-16. So these are all essentially American fighter planes here, right? And the F-15 alone has a kill ratio of 104-0, mostly against Russian, almost all Russian planes. 104-0. Get that in your head. This is overkill superiority. Then you got F-35s, which are far superior. And then Japan has advanced ground forces. Let's take a quick look. All right. So, Japanese forces, F-35s. Oh, big rising suns. So this is Japanese. F-15. Oh, big rising suns. So this is Japanese. F-2 fighter. If you look at it, if anyone knows aircraft, this is slightly different from an F-16. Slightly. Maybe a little longer than a fuselage here. Oh, but rising sun. Japanese. Japanese surface-to-air batteries. What is that? That's a phased array radar system. If you know anything about phased array right there. Here's an aircraft carrier. What's on top? F-35, Japanese aircraft carrier. Here's a Japanese electric diesel boat. Super quiet. Here's a Japanese destroyer. All right. What has it got there? It's got a Sperry Rand, I think it's Raytheon now, Aegis radar system. Same as U.S. warships. Super capable. Here's Japanese surface-to-air missile batteries. Japanese tanks. That's our Type 10. I'm willing to bet this will go toe-to-toe easy with a T-90. Right? Probably take a T-90 easy. Japanese anti-tank missiles. Guided. Right? Optical. It's optical. Probably laser guided. Like a TOW. All right. Now, don't forget. Russia lost the war against Chechnya. And what were the Chechens' primary weapons? Were they fighter aircraft? Were they stealth aircraft? Were they submarines? Right? Were they tanks? No, they're AK-47s and RPGs. And Russia lost them. Get real. Russia lost to Chechnya in urban guerrilla warfare with AK-47s and RPGs. I mean, laugh at that. Goodness sakes. We're dealing with retard reality here. On top of all this, Japan will get help from USA. Right? Only a totally ignorant, crackpot, retard who knows nothing of the massive requirements of an amphibious invasion and Russia's near total lack of that capability would possibly think Russia could invade Japan. Especially the Russia that got beat by Chechnya. Now we're talking opposite ends of the spectrum. You got Chechnya on one hand, you got Japan's military on the other hand. Alright? Right? They lost to Chechnya. I mean, I can't draw a picture for that. I mean, how do you draw a picture? What crayons do you use to explain this to people? If they can't understand this, right? You can't beat it in their heads. All right, now let's take another example. Let's take South Korea, right here. Here's North Korea. Here's China. Here's Russia, right? Now, Russia is not connected to South Korea. So it's got to be another amphibious assault on South Korea. If it wants to take South Korea, all right? Now, the only way it's going to go by land is if it goes through North Korea, and it's not going to go through North Korea with this tiny little bridge there, right? Plus, North Korea has nuclear weapons, right? It's not going to cut across here through China. China's got nuclear weapons, right? It's going to have to be an amphibious invasion. It's going to face the exact same problems. And South Korea is like Japan. There's no pushover. South Korea has major military forces, just like Japan. All right. Now, here's the next one. Here's Russia. There's Japan, South Korea, and let's take a look at China, right? So China shares a large border with Russia over here, all right? Kind of goes up here. This is Manchuria area, all right? But why would Russia attack China when they sell them a lot of gas and oil? They're a big customer of Russia. Russia makes a lot of money from China. And after the European sanctions in 2014, Putin made a turn to the east, to China. Plus, China outclasses Russia militarily. Finally, China is is a huge country. I mean, come on. Georgia is tiny. They only invaded South Ossetia and Abkhazia. They had trouble there, right? They had trouble with Chechnya, a tiny little province there. China's here. Are you kidding me? It's just insane, impossible. You gotta be retard crazy to think that they can invade and conquer all of China. They had trouble with Chechnya. I mean, how do I draw a crayon picture to explain this to you? Right? And then Russia would have long lines of communication getting, supplies to China. And China's got substantial military forces that can knock it all down, destroy it all along the way. Plus, finally, China's got nuclear weapons. So that's totally out of the picture. No way Russia's going to attack. Goodness sakes. Why? How can you make a joke about this? This is so obvious. Only a total mental retard moron. Not just a zombie. You got to be a mentally retarded moronic zombie to not see this. I mean, that's God's honest truth. All right, so Mongolia is resource poor. Look at Mongolia, big territory. You got big territory to take there. For what? It's got nothing. It's got some minerals, coal, copper, fluorite, iron, lead. So what? Russia's got plenty of that, right? The cost is getting that's way more than just develop your own. Just expanded development of your own. God. Do you know how stupid that is? It's got no high-tech industries, only mining and construction. Plus, it is a vast barren territory, which would be hard to conquer and hold, especially against guerrilla forces that continuously assault supply lines with hit-and-run rates. And you're swimming backwards, right? You're swimming against the tide. Little to gain for a high price. It's a joke. invasion of Mongolia would embroil Russia in a proxy war against Mongolian insurgents backed by China. Now, do I know that for sure? No. You know that's like almost 100% certain. You go invade Mongolia, you know you're threatening China. They're going to support Mongolia with a proxy war. Again, proxy wars are cheap, no sweat off their brow, no one's paying attention at home. It's going to bleed Russia dry, and no one's going to even bat an eye at it in China. All right, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is almost identical to Mongolia. About the same size, big territories. Only difference is Kazakh has more substantial resources. It has oil, right? And it's got less amounts of gas, coal, iron, other metals, right? But Russia has plenty of these. Russia has plenty of oil. It's the 8th largest oil reserves in the world, right? Plus, Russia has oil and gas deals with Kazakhstan. So Russia makes money off of Kazakhstan's oil and gas, transporting it across Russia, over the border across Russia. So they make money over it anyways. Russia has the largest gas reserves in the world. Well, Kazakhstan is 15th. Why do they need Kazakhstan's gas? Come on. Plus, again, large territory, hard to conquer and hold. Right? Long lines of communication, same old thing. China-backed proxy war. Why? China shares a large border with Kazakhstan. You know they'll be threatened if Russia invades there. Hello? McFly? Do I need to punch you in the head? Wake you up? Goodness sakes. All right. So now let's look at Georgia. Russia invaded Georgia in 2008 to defend against NATO expansion into Ukraine and Georgia. I explained that. If you don't know this, you don't understand this, I can't teach you this again. And I know that 99.99999% know none of that. They retain nothing. All they have in their head is a joke. A simple 2-second joke they read on their phone. But Russia's incursion was geographically small, limited only to South Ossetia and Abkhazia. So Georgia is a tiny little country here. How big is that? I mean, it's got to be no bigger than like Vermont, right? And then you're not invading you're invading just a tiny portion of it. 40 miles side to side here. South, that's it. Abkhazia, barely bigger, right? And Russia had trouble with that. And then Russia did not dare extend beyond South Ossetia and Abkhazia, right? They pulled out right away. And especially they did not threaten the oil and gas pipelines running from Baku. All right, for example, Baku is over here. Here is Azerbaijan, right about here. They run across this way to Tbilisi here. Then they cut south through Turkey, all right? There's no way Russia dare touch that. Otherwise, USA would scream, UN would scream, Turkey would scream. Bigger than anyone. Europe would scream. Right? Bloody murder. Slap on big sanctions. Fuel a Georgian rebels in a proxy war. There would be another quagmire that would bleed Russia. So likely scenario, Tbilisi with a population of over 1 million. How big was Grozny? 267,000. This is 4 times bigger than Grozny. 4 times bigger, complicated urban guerrilla war. Right? It would become an urban guerrilla warfare battlefield for which Russia has been proven inept. And even if Russia were to succeed, which is highly questionable, Georgian insurgents would find refuge in the Caucasus Mountains, which would serve as a base from which to launch guerrilla raids and terrorist attacks, even across the border into, let's say, North Ossetia, which is pro-Russian. Here's North Ossetia. All this is pro-separatist, right? So why do I say that? Here's Chechnya. Here's Grozny, right about here. What happened in the first war? 2 years of urban warfare in Grozny. Finally, Russia lost. They lost the war, and they had to evacuate, right? But then they started the second war. In the second war, they finally won after about a year. But then the Chechen forces melted into the mountains, into the Caucasus, right? And they fought 10 years of guerrilla warfare out of there, all right? You think the same would not occur with Georgia? They melt. Even if Russia were able to defeat the Georgians in Tbilisi, which is questionable, the Georgian forces would melt into the mountains here. And not only would they could invade North Ossetia, attack North Ossetia, they can make connections with Chechnya right over here, right? Make contact with them. I mean, that's what the first thing I would do. I would try to make ties with Chechen separatists and convince them that Russia's diversion of big military forces down here is a distraction, creates opportunity for them to make their big separatist attempt again. 15 times historically that's been done. You think they're not itching to do it again? That would definitely destabilize that region. Create that potential for another separatist attempt. Now, that's simple logic. That's simple intelligence. It's not, I know, funny joke in social reality. He's crazy. That's all people have. All right. So, if Chechens try to break away again, well, Russia's going to be embroiled in a third Chechen war. Not just a war in Georgia, a war in Chechnya again. And this could spread to other North Caucasus states like Dagestan, Ingushetia, Kabardino. These are all Muslim, all part of that shadowy Caucasus Emirates. All right. So to the west, pretty much every country is part of NATO except Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. Okay? All right. I'll show you a map real quick. All right. Well, Finland, Sweden are not part of Ukraine or NATO, right? But everything over here, except Austria and Switzerland, are part of NATO. All this. Okay? All the way down here, Italy. I'll talk about the Balkans separately in a second. All right, so to the west, you only got Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova. All right, here's Belarus, here's Ukraine, here's Moldova, right on Russia's doorstep. Right, these are not part of NATO. Right. However, Ukraine has strong ties with NATO. All right, so Ukraine. Now, if Russia launched the major invasion of Ukraine, it would be hit. When I say major, going across trying to conquer the whole damn country. It would be hit hard with sanctions and probably European boycott of Russian gas and oil. Right? So what is Russia gaining from this? All right? It's just going to get whacked hard immediately. Plus, you're going to have, and there isn't much to gain from taking Ukraine, whose oligarch-dominated economy suffers high levels of corruption, stagnant growth, with high inflation. You know, it varies, but roughly 14% inflation. Ukraine is resource poor. It has some minerals, including oil and gas. Russia's got plenty of that. It doesn't need Ukraine's. It's not worth it. Right? With all the Russians going to lose, just develop your own better. Right? Expand your production. I mean, you can expand your production capacity, but even then, right, you're limited. You produce too much, you drive down price. I mean, come on. Think. Other than that, Ukraine's chief resource is good agriculture, right? Oh, they can grow potatoes and vegetables and whatever. Ukraine is a large territory that would be hard to conquer and control by a full-scale Russian invasion. And even if Russia were to achieve swift victory over Ukraine's conventional forces, which is highly questionable, right? Russia will have to be an occupation force, and this will create a long, drawn-out insurgency to which Russian forces could easily be bled out in a proxy war, supported by advanced U.S. Western weapons, right? You know the West and Europe's going to respond by supporting Ukraine. They're going to dump weapons and training there, intelligence support, all right, satellite intel, all right? Why? Because they're threatened. Furthermore, Ukraine has 32 cities with populations greater than 200,000, each of which could be turned into nasty urban guerrilla warfare battlefields, for which Russia has been proven to be ineffective. Now recall that Russia lost the First Chechen War, which was fought in Grozny, its only major city. In fact, Chechen has no population greater than 50,000 other than Grozny, 276,000. Nothing else greater than 50,000. 50,000 is a village. I grew up in a suburb called Park Ridge. It was called a village. 44,000. Right? Russia had trouble with one city and lost the war. How are they going to deal with 32 cities? Are you nuts? What planet are you living on? 18 cities bigger than Grozny. Kiev is way bigger than Grozny. Come on. 18 cities bigger than Grozny. 32 cities over 200,000. You think they lost to Chechnya? What planet are you from? What retard reality are you living in? And you know USA, Europe, and Turkey will support Ukraine with these things. Special forces training. Cheap. You don't even have to do this in country. Just do it in a next door neighbor country that's protected by NATO or something like that. Train them in tactics. Train them in coordinated air support for ground operations. Perhaps drones. Teach them hit and run guerrilla attacks on Russian supply convoys, severing the logistics. Right? You know, it's gonna be a large country, long lines of communication, increases their vulnerability. They had trouble logistics in Georgia, 40 miles. I mean, get real. They had trouble with 40 miles. Goodness sakes. You provide satellite intel on Russian force movements, command and control centers, ammunition dumps, lines of communication, movement of supply convoys, and you make them all highly vulnerable to guerrilla attacks, right? Drone attacks, artillery attacks. And you know what? This is what I'm thinking. This would be ideal for a situation like this, right? You got insurgent forces. You can get small vehicles like a Humvee, right? Even a pickup truck. Hell, you weld a mortar mount onto it. And then you supply them with GPS guided mortar rounds. These exist today. GPS guided mortar rounds. Then you supply them with satellite intel. Right? And whatever you're going to attack, let's say it's an ammo dump, or let's say it's a command control set. You got every building marked out. Right? You got the latrine marked out. Right? Everything. You target everything. You get the exact GPS coordinates beforehand. You get your mortars all set up You rush into the exact spot you're going to shoot from. You punch in the GPS for the location you're at, right? Use that, right? And then use that to attack the exact known GPS coordinates, right? You pop off all your rounds. Man, you can pop off all your rounds in less than 2 minutes. And then you hightail out of there. And then this is what I would do. I would know that how's Russia going to respond to this, right? Russia's not going to be able to track this. You're going to come in, whack them hard, but they're going to respond to it, right? They're going to put air assets in the air, search them down, all right? You know they're going to come in with their whatever Hind helicopters, all right? You know their frog foot, whatever planes, right? Try to drop ordnance. Well, you set them up for a double ambush. You have forces all set up to ambush them. You know they're coming in. So you ambush them again with shoulder-fired SAMs, right? Stinger missiles or whatever. There's other ones these days. I don't know the new shoulder-fired missiles, right? You get a double ambush. It's like urban warfare. You set up an RPG attack, right? You got your lines of escape all mapped out. You booby trap that. They try to go after you. They get whacked again. You whack them hard. You whack them again. Same idea. Not that complicated. Not rocket science. Any Frankenstein retard should understand this. So we can even supply drones with Hellfire missiles. Hell, Ukraine already has them from Turkey. Same Turkish drones that fought in the recent Nagorno-Karabakh war, right? In which Turkish-backed Azerbaijan kicked ass over Russian-backed Armenia. And these drones beat the hell out of Russian tanks, T-90 tanks, and Russian APCs, right? Were decimated by Turkish drones firing air-to-surface missiles. Right? They got them already. You think it's going to be easy? Shut up. All you got is your stupid joke. I know, funny joke. Everyone's saying it, so it's real. Same retarded method. Aggressive humor. God. Russian occupation forces must hold ground, so they will assume a static defense. Losing the initiative. This is a military term. Any decent military person understands this. How the advantage is to those who hold the initiative. And then you become vulnerable targets for hit-and-run guerrilla attacks, right? Ambush raids. Especially with U.S. Special Forces training and intelligence support, weapon support. Again, my idea, GPS-guided mortar attacks. I mean, you don't even need that. Just RPG and small arms attacks. Western Special Forces training can take advantage of and be tailored to take advantage of Russian deficiencies in counterinsurgency and urban warfare. There is plenty to study from here. Plenty to study with Chechen wars, with Afghanistan. Plenty to study Russia's failures. Right? That's what you do. If you're Special Forces, you study Russia's weakness. Then you teach them. You teach how to whack them. From a static basis, Russian forces would have to send out patrols. Right? Again, they're vulnerable. They're static. They're sitting back and just getting whacked. They got to send out patrols. And those patrols can be ambushed. Especially with U.S. intelligence support. Satellite intel. Encrypted satellite communication. With no direct U.S. troop involvement and thus no casualties, the average American won't be paying attention to this, making the conflict for the American public low intensity, low invisibility. What does that mean? No one even knows what's going on. Spawning no domestic political backlash, and thus indefinitely sustainable. It would also be cheap, right? That also makes it sustainable. Doesn't cost much. Just weapons, right? Just special forces. Just some communication stuff. That cannot be said of Russia, which will be bled dry in men and materials, with rising costs and blood and money. I mean, it's going to mount. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Money's going to be, spilling. Blood's going to be spilling. Creating domestic political backlash and political and possible instability. That's Russia's number one threat, according to the RAND report. And recall, Russia has a long history of revolutions and breakup of the Soviet Union. Internal instability. All right, it's a pattern within Russia. Also, the breakaway Islamic republics in the North Caucasus, especially Chechnya, would likely jump at the opportunity for yet another chance to go independent, which is now made more problematic with the emergence of the Pan-Islamic Caucasus Emirates. Why? It's no longer just Chechnya. Dagestan could go. Ingushetia could go. All right? Kabardina could go. And you're going to get Gulf. If they try to go, you're going to get Gulf state help. They're going to finance it. They're going to provide, foreign fighters. Maybe you're going to get some Turkish support. I think it's totally possible. I don't know all the dynamics. I don't know the relationship between the Muslims in Turkey and the Muslims in Chechnya. But I'm willing to bet, right? The Chechen Muslims do not pose Turks a threat. There may be blowback from maybe the U.S. and, hey, don't support these guys. But, I don't even think the Chechens, this is going off I'm not going to get it. It's off to the side. All right, Turkey's strategic security will be threatened by a big Russian move into Ukraine. Why? This is the classic conflict between Russia and Ottoman Empire Turkey. All right? It's always been Russia moving south here towards the Black Sea. All right? Russia, prior to the Crimean War, they're pushing this way. All right? With the stated thing of supporting Christendom. That was bullshit. Their goal was strategic. Their goal was to take the Bosphorus Dardanelles. If they can control that, that's a major strategic coup. Right? That's what the Crimean War was all about. That's why they're always fighting. Every time Russia make a move towards the Black Sea, that threatened Turkey's security. Always fighting over that. Threaten them again. So that Turkey's going to support Ukraine with a big proxy war. A lot of weapons, a lot of special forces assistance, right? And, if I were Turkey, and if there were no other blowback, I would see if I could jam Russia in the backside here, supporting Chechnya. You make it quiet. You make that all under the table, all right? There's no guarantee you're going to keep it totally out of the press, right? But it's all back channels, probably through the Middle East. You go through some intermediaries in any event. All right, and I think, like Georgia, even more than Georgia, this could probably cause Turkey to jam Russia in the backside with a strategic attack on their very vulnerable and very vital North Caucasus. Remember, keep in mind, all the pipelines running through the North Caucasus, all the oil and gas in the North Caucasus, 45% of Caspian oil, right, are inland, mostly in the North Caucasus. 35% of Caspian gas, not at Baku, inland, mostly in the North Caucasus. That's according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency. All right. So the large force size needed for invasion of Ukraine would require heavy reliance upon one-year conscripts. All right. You got to use these guys. Russia's going to have to use it. And these guys suck. Poorly trained. They're not combat trained. All right. They're barely combat trained. Poorly motivated. Proving ineffective while undermining morale, increasing desertion rates. You know they're going to desert in droves. Raising domestic opposition to the war as the body bags pile up at home. Especially because these guys, they don't volunteer. They're forced into it. Right? They're not mercenaries. They're not volunteers. They're forced into it. You know, with Russian instability, there's going to be big problems at home. Russian forces may resort to brutal urban warfare, counterinsurgency methods like carpet bombing, and massive artillery barrages, just like in Chechnya, just like in Grozny, especially given their shortage of smart weapons, precision weapons. They don't have them. They don't have many. Why? They can't afford them. Russia's poor. Russia's got a weak GDP. So they're going to, in a major urban warfare, they're going to use stupid bombs, right? It's going to have a lot of collateral damage, right? What's that going to do? It's going to radicalize and fuel resistance, right? It will give Ukraine people their remember the Alamo, remember the Maine, remember Pearl Harbor. What does that do? Did that jack up Americans? Oh, you bet you it did. That got Americans all crazy mad. Thus boosting morale of insurgent forces. Thus boosting the morale of your enemy. Now, how stupid is that? And that's exactly what happened in the Chechen wars. They indiscriminately bombed these areas that created massive support for resistance, where it stiffened Chechen resistance while fueling the rise of radical Islamic jihadism. So that was even more complicated. Poor discipline will likely result in atrocities, which will further fuel resistance. Why do I know that? That happens in all of Russia's wars. They have crap discipline. There's a lot of atrocities. Right? I mean, it happens in the U.S., but the U.S. does a pretty good job keeping a lid on it. Except for these damn mercenaries. These private military security contractors. You always get some idiots. Fuel resistance, radicalization, recruitment of insurgent fighters, boosting morale of the Ukrainian insurgents, stiffening their determination to fight, which is anti-strategic. A fundamental strategy is to undermine the enemy's morale. Right? That's what you focus on in whatever way you can. Right? You don't build up the morale. Another fundamental strategy is to set the civilian population at odds against the military. This does the opposite. It joins them together. Right? I wrote a strategy to take down ISIS, which this was a key part of. And it worked. It is very likely Russia will suffer the same shortfalls of their three most recent wars in Chechnya. I'm going to skip this. Right? I went through this already. All these failures. You think, right? That after three recent wars of this happening, suddenly it all improved, miraculously improved. Bullshit. You gotta be nuts to think, oh, it's all fixed now. I'm not going to go through all this. Yeah, it's going to be a Russian quagmire. It's going to fuel Russian internal instability. Probably, protest, no doubt protest, maybe even a revolution. Something big like that. Right? Definitely Putin's going to be voted out of office. Including potential revolution, likely North Caucasus breakaway. They're going to break away again. All right, let's take a look at Belarus. Right? So here's Ukraine. Here's Belarus. Big country. Now, since the fall of the Soviet Union, Belarus has been pretty much connected to the hip with Russia, economically and politically, through the Russian support for this guy, Lukashenko, who's Belarus's first and only president for 26 years, who's really more a dictator, who stole the last election, sparking all these protests in Belarus, right? Belarus has insignificant resources. It's got nothing. It's got a crap economy. It's got outdated, inefficient industrial base, and is dependent upon cheap gas subsidized by Russia. Man, it's a liability to Russia. They got to subsidize these bums. Thus, there is little benefit from taking Belarus. Why the hell would you do it? There's nothing to gain. Hello, McFly. Look at the resources. Look at the industry. Look at the economy. Nothing. Thus, there is little to no benefit from taking Belarus. So Belarus is roughly a third the size of Ukraine. A Russian invasion would still face the same problems of an insurgency, urban guerrilla warfare. They only got 3 cities that are large, actually. It's not nearly as bad as Ukraine, but that's triple the size, the problem of Chechnya. Belarus has little aspiration of joining the European Union or NATO, and thus does not pose much of a threat to Russia. However, change could be afoot with Belarus's recent purchase of U.S. oil and Lukashenko starting to court the West, right? And, this is just my guess. Why the hell is he doing this, right? I think, it's perhaps to gain an advantage, maybe some concessions, maybe some support, maybe some money, right? Either from Russia or the U.S., right? By playing the U.S. off of Russia. Playing them off each other, trying to get them to, squeeze out some support for them. You know what I'm saying? All right. So now, what is not part of NATO here? Well, you got Austria and Switzerland. Okay. So all this is part of NATO. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, right? Slovenia. And then you got Austria, that's not. And you got Switzerland now. Everything else around it, Germany, Denmark, UK, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, all right? Croatia down here, Turkey. You got North Macedonia, Greece, Bulgaria. What am I missing there? That's about it. So these are tucked away. Look at, they're surrounded by NATO. They're protected by NATO. That's probably why, I'm guessing, that's probably why they're not part of NATO. Because they got NATO protection already. Why do they need to join NATO? You join NATO, you got to dedicate 2% of your GDP to NATO's military assets. Right? They get it for free. All right? Now the same applies to Kosovo, Serbia, and Bosnia. Of all the Balkan states here, Romania, Slovenia, Croatia, all right, Montenegro, Albania, Greece, North Macedonia. They're all part of NATO, except for these 3. But they're tucked away in a little nice. They're nested in there, right? Protected by NATO, right? So they're probably doing it on. Well, Serbia's not going to join NATO because they got bombed by NATO. They got bombed by the U.S., right? So they're all. Only these are not part of it. And U.S. has bases in Kosovo and Bosnia. Those serve as tripwires. You're not attacking those unless you want to attack the U.S. And then Turkey's here part of NATO. Norway's part of NATO. Russia's surrounded by NATO. All right. And, okay, so then, what else can they take? Oh, they can take Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all right? But they're part of NATO. You attack them, you attack NATO. Plus, U.S. has 1,000-man, what I call tripwire forces there. All right? Now, what's the purpose of a 1,000-man force? Are you going to use a 1,000-man force and invade Russia? Oh, hell no. That's nothing. That's half a regiment. Right? They're not an offensive threat. Their main purpose is to get bloody. If Russia attacks, they're going to get bloody. And then if that occurs, all hell's going to break loose. U.S. is going to retaliate big time. It's going to be swift, severe, and brutal, and crippling. All right? You kill American boys, shed American blood, Russia's going to get whacked hard by Americans, right? Plus, you're going to get the whole NATO response. All right? So what do I say here? Plus, the U.S. had 1,000-man tripwire forces stationed there. At about half a regiment, these forces are sized right. They are too small to be provocative offensive threat, yet large enough that if they were attacked and bloodied, America would respond with severe retaliation. The U.S. would go mad dog madness on them. The U.S. would go ape shit on whoever attacked them. And retaliation would be swift, severe, and crippling. Thus, these small forces serve as tripwires. Right? You trip the wire, bam! You get whacked bad. On the other hand, other than that, Finland and Sweden to the west are not part of NATO. All right, here's Finland. This is Russia, and this is Sweden. Right? Both of these have substantial militaries. Finland has, well, Finland, first of all, is not worth it. It's got a small GDP, like 240 billion. It's got no resources, none. Why do you want to take Finland? It's got some industrial centers, right? But it's got a small GDP. What do you get from it? It's got highly advanced Western military equipment. F-18 fighters, German Leopard 2, whatever version, main battle tanks, right? All sorts of other, it's got some Russian, it's old Soviet, like APCs and stuff too. All right. Now, you get this, right? And look what happened in the Winter War. Russia was bled dry in the Winter War against Finland. For what? What's it going to get from them? And then Sweden, there's no way. Sweden's got a substantial military industry. All right. They make great fighter aircraft. They make great weapon systems. U.S. buys a lot of the weapon systems. World War II, Bofors cannons. World War II, Erkeland cannons. Today, they buy AT-4s. Today, they buy Carl Gustav, right? Whatever those called, little cannons. And then, what else they buy? They buy other Swedish stuff. Yeah. We still buy Swedish stuff. Right? Russia's not attacking. Come on. All right. So Russia attacking NATO nations would be ridiculous, especially with U.S. 1,000-man tripwire forces stationed, for example, in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Plus, U.S. got bases all around. Belgium, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Estonia, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Kosovo, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Romania, Spain, Turkey, UK. We got bases everywhere. They're all tripwires. For example, remember I said in the Balkans? Well, first of all, why would Russia would have to go through Ukraine, Moldova, Romania to get to, Serbia to get to Bosnia? Why would it take Bosnia? What's there? What resources? Nothing. What economy? Nothing. Just stupid. This is insanely stupid. You got to be a retard not to see this. Scenario. So here's a scenario. If Russia attacked a NATO nation, which the response would be immediate. and it would ensure that Russia would lose far more than it ever possibly could gain from attacking NATO nation. UN economic sanctions would be slapped on right away. Then you get any additional US and European sanctions slapped on, plus Europe would embargo Russian gas and oil. They lost more than they can get already. And then NATO naval blockade. This is what I would do. I would have an immediate naval blockade of Russian 3 sea lines of communication. Right? Remember, they got the North Sea, Barents Sea, Norwegian Sea coming here. You got the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap. You got the Baltic Sea here coming out. You got to go through the Cataract gap there, straits. You got to go through the Black Sea, right? You got to go through the Bosphorus Dardanelles straits there. All of those are easily severed. You cut off all their commerce. You get a blockade. You whack their naval forces, then you jam them, right? Immediately they lost in commerce far more than they could ever possibly gain. You don't, let's say they invaded Estonia. You don't even have to invade Estonia. You whacked them, they lost far more. What is that? That's all asymmetric stuff. And then you whack them in Estonia. And then why would they attack Estonia? There's nothing there. Goodness sakes. Right? You'd overwhelm them in the air and on the ground, in the country invaded. So let's take a look at a chart showing the countries. These are the countries that border Russia. Remember I said South Korea, Japan, China, North Korea, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland. Right? The only countries worth taking are China, Japan, South Korea. There's no way that's happening. Right? I'm not going to go through all the reasons why it's not happening. This is crazy stupid. You got to be stupid to think this is going to happen. You got to have so stupid the only thing you have in your mind is a joke in social reality. That's how stupid you have to be to think that this can happen. It could happen because I know a joke in social reality. I know, a 10-second blurb. Funny joke. It's retard shit. Alright. Now, all the other countries are not worth taking. So the countries that are worth taking, there's no way Russia can take them. Everything else is not worth taking. Look at the GDPs here. They're crap. The biggest is Kazakhstan, but most of them are small. Let's take a look at the Baltic states. 41, 54, 91. That's nothing. Look at Georgia. You know what? I used to know that the annual profits of Tesla, one company, is approaching the total annual GDP of Georgia. And I'm guessing within a decade it's going to exceed Georgia. Maybe less than that. Maybe 5 years. Tesla will make more money than Georgia makes in its whole GDP. They're worthless. Whole countries are worthless. Come on. What does Finland have? Oh, it's got some timber. They got wood. Let's go invade them for wood. Get our ass kicked for some wood. Iron, copper. Russia's got tons of that. Why do you want it? It's so damn costly a war. Just develop your own. Dig a new mine. Do a little geological exploration. There's plenty. Dig a deeper tunnel. Goodness sakes. Plus, Finland partners with NATO. Finland's got advanced Western military hardware. Estonia. What does it have? Oh, it's got oil shale. Right? Oh, so Russia can frack over there. Why would they want to frack? That costs more than just pumping it out of the ground. Hell, it probably comes out under pressure in Siberia. Oh, they got peat. All right. What do you do with peat? I don't know, maybe you can use it as fertilizer. Maybe you burn it. It's like burning wood. Oh, you can build a chimney. You can build more chimneys in Russia if you get Estonia. Plus, remember NATO. That's not happening. You're gonna get whacked for what? Nothing. Does this make any sense? I mean, super whacked, get nothing. All right, super whacked, get nothing. Hello? God. Latvia. Oh, they got peat. Build some more chimneys. Right? Limestone. Oh, okay, they got some rocks. Amber. Oh, they can make some jewelry. Right? What the hell? Hydropower. All right. Peat, arable land. Lithuania. Peat, arable land. Amber. Crap. NATO. Right? Get whacked by NATO. For what? For nothing. Why would Russia even think this? You think they're a bunch of retards? Only a retard would think this. Only a mental retard. Only a retarded, moronic, idiotic zombie. You're brain dead as it is. You're retarded, brain dead. Belarus. Crap economy. Crap industries. Oh, they got wood. Yeah, we can build some more houses. Oh, they got peat. They have little oil and gas. They got a crap, inefficient industrial base. They got a corrupt political base, dependent upon Russia. I mean, it's a liability for Russia as it is. Now, the only thing Russia would be concerned about with Belarus, if Belarus screwed Russia like Ukraine does. But Belarus doesn't do that. Ukraine does. Now, Belarus is courting the West by it's starting to buy U.S. oil. That's a big threat to Russia. That's a turn to the West, right? And they're courting the West. All right, Ukraine. Ukraine's got iron ore, coal, magnet. So what? Russia's got plenty of that. It costs far more to go invade Ukraine to get theirs. I mean, far infinitely more. And just go dig your own. They got plenty. Only a retard would think that. Oh, they got great minerals. God. Just do a little bean counting. What's it going to cost to get Ukraine? Ukraine's got lesser amounts of oil and gas. They got a corrupt government, oligarch-dominated economy. They're poor. $8,800 average income per capita. It's a poor country. Why do you want that? Corrupt government, big country, easy proxy war. Bled dry. God. Georgia's got nothing. Look at their economy. Not even 40 billion. Oh, they got some wood. They got some hydrogen. They got manganese, iron. So what? But it's a strategic Western interest. You take Georgia, you're going to get big blowback from the West. Why? Because non-Russian gas pipelines run through Georgia. You mess with that, you mess with Western economies. You know Russia's going to get whacked. You know Europe's not going to stand for that. You know U.S. is not going to stand for that. You know Turkey's not going to stand for that. Turkey makes big money transporting gas from the Caspian across Turkey to Europe to the Balkans. Russia screws with that. Oh, there's going to be hell to pay. Plus, it's a strategic security threat to Turkey. Come on. This is so obvious that only a retard can attack this. Azerbaijan, you're not touching that. That's so strategic to the west, to Turkey. And look it, they just fought a proxy war between Turkey and Russia, and Turkey kicked ass. Azerbaijan kicked ass on Armenia. Right? You know Turkey's not going to let Azerbaijan go under. You know the U.S. is not going to let that happen. But Turkey right away. What are you going to get for that? Oil? Russia's got plenty of oil. God. If anything, they should expand their oil production capacity. But they're not. They don't even need to do that. You produce too much, you drop price. There's no sense expanding it beyond, let's say, 500,000 barrels a day. If you got that spare production capacity, that's probably more than you need to influence price. They don't need to go get someone else's. It costs way more than they'll ever possibly make. Just expand their own. You gotta be a I'm serious. It's not a joke. Mongolia. They're gonna get nothing from Mongolia. Big area, hard to conquer. China proxy war. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's got some more. That's why they got the largest, right? The Russian doesn't need that. Big country, hard to conquer, long lines of communication, China proxy war. North Korea. Why the hell would you look at? They're barely bigger than Georgia. Their whole damn GDP. No resources. Backward, crap economy. Plus they got nuclear weapons. Alright. So summary scenario. Russia invasion of a neighbor to rebuild its glorious empire. Bullshit. What are they gonna... There's no nation on Russia's border that's worth taking or that Russia can take. All the other nations are not worth taking. They're worthless. I showed you they're worthless. This is the CIA website of the resources. GDPs. Only Ukraine is a special case because Ukraine has a long history of screwing Russia on natural gas transit to Europe. In response to this, Russia built pipelines to bypass Ukraine. So here's the Black Sea. Here's Ukraine. You see the outline there? All the yellow are gas pipelines. 80% of Russian gas to Europe went through Ukraine. Ukraine for years has been stealing gas. They've been siphoning gas. They've not been paying their bills. All right, big bills melting, and they've been violating contracts. All right, they're screwing Russia. So Russia's been doing everything it can to bypass Ukraine, building the Blue Stream to Turkey here, to bypass it here, building the Nord Stream 1 here to Germany, building the South Stream, which got canceled by UN sanctions in European sanctions in 2014, building the Turk Stream 1, Turk Stream 2, and now they're building the Nord Stream 2. But the USA is attacking the Nord Stream 2 with sanctions. We're blocking its construction. We're screwing everyone. We're screwing Germany with this. Germany's all pissed off at us, right? And we're doing this to force Russia to send gas back through Ukraine. Well, Ukraine's been screwing Russia. That's why they're trying to bypass it. And then at the same time, we're trying to get NATO membership for both Ukraine, which is a source of Russian gas, which is screwing Russia on gas, and Georgia down here, which is the route of non-Russian gas to Europe. All right. Let's see here. All right, so this is Baku gas. Runs here through Azerbaijan, Georgia, comes down, like I said, through Turkey, runs across the Trans-Anatolian pipeline to the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, jumps over Europe, runs up here through the Balkans, Brua. Other ones are being planned, Ionian, East Ring, and there's another one. I always keep forgetting the other one. All right. So that's why they link Ukraine and Georgia together. This jams Russia with a double threat. Okay? Thus, this would give NATO military umbrella protection for Ukraine, screwing Russian gas while protecting non-Russian alternative gas. Thus, the U.S. is jamming Russia with a blatant and obvious strategic threat. But self-serving Americans will never be honest. Either that or they're just plain stupid. All they have is a joke in their head. This is so simple and obvious. The only way you can attack it is with a simple, stupid wave, a social retard reality based on nothing. But that's exactly all people know. They'll know nothing else. Just a simple, stupid, baseless wave in a 10-second blurb. All right, that's it for that lecture. I'm not going to go through all the review of it again. Hopefully some of this stuck. 99% got nothing out of it. 99.9999%.